had last spoken to y'all, and we want to start off with this NBA draft lottery because there's a lot to get into with this NBA draft lottery. A couple of people are looking to this like we're going to talk prospects. No, we're actually not going to talk prospects. What we are going to talk about is the uncertainty surrounded by the draft coming up because in the top four, you have three teams that are looking to win now, maybe who could look to trade out. The Atlanta Hawks, who ended up winning it with the first overall pick. You have the Houston Rockets at 3, and then the San Antonio Spurs at 4. We know Trae Young, his name has been attached to potential trades. DeJounte Murray's name has been attached to potential trades. And we also know that Trae Young has come out and said that he wants to win. He wants to be in Atlanta, but he wants to win. So that first pick, even though this isn't the strongest draft compared to years past, especially last year, that first pick holds a lot of weight and it holds the keys to an uncertain future in Atlanta. Are we trying to win? Are we going to get rid of this pick? Or are we going to go full rebuild mode? Are we going to reset? Now, if they win, if they're going full on win, who is a player right now that would covet that first overall pick?
If I was the Hawks,
Who do you want to pair up with Murray and Trey?
that is a good question. I think obviously you still have Clint Capella over there, so you're
Sure,
probably
he's in
thinking
too.
I you're probably thinking you need a wing player. I would say so. If you can get someone maybe like Brandon Ingram, kind of a scorer, wing player like that, I think some people would talk about maybe him being on the move. Yeah, that's what I think. Off the top of my head, I think someone like Brandon Ingram would be like a perfect fit for them to kind of come over there, bring that wing score, real dynamic scorer, and take some pressure off of Trae Young. And Murray is a scorer, but he is also like a point guard, so it takes some pressure off Trae Young doing all that, and you get a wing score, and then maybe Clint Capella on the back end if you keep him blocking shots and rebounding.
The other thing I'm wondering about too, like we talked about Atlanta, but having Houston and San Antonio in there for those 3 and 4 picks. Houston barely missed the play, and they're looking like they have a really good trajectory moving forward. And then Victor Wembanyama unanimously wins Rookie of the Year. He looks special. He looks like he's going to be something special. And if you're the San Antonio Spurs seeing the rookie year that he just had, you know that you got to put pieces around him. Now they do need a point guard, and there are point guards for them to draft. But if you can get an established guy in there, um, you can definitely look to speed up the process moving forward. And then we were just talking about the Atlanta Hawks. You can get the San Antonio Spurs have 2 lottery picks to play with. And to me, that fourth pick is the one most likely to get dealt between the two. If you're San Antonio going back to Atlanta, would you rather bring DeJounte Murray back, who already knows the city and the system well, played under Pop, still has spoken a lot about his affinity and love for Pop and the Spurs, or do you want to take a different approach and go after the other point guard and Trae Young, who not gonna lie would be a pretty nice piece next to Wembanyama in that pick and roll?
Right. I think you bring up a good point about bringing someone back in there. I think it depends on their timeline. I think maybe I guess both are kind of like win now moves, but obviously uh, I think Murray, for the reasons you just brought up, would help them maybe a little sooner because he knows the system, he knows Pop, he can come in and fit right in. And in that situation, maybe you can trade for some of your picks back that you gave him, so that you gave up to get him. So it might even also help your future a little bit. So you get some picks back, you get him back. He knows the system already, kind of plug and play, and you guys can maybe hit the ball rolling a little faster. Where you bring in Trey, he's probably the better talent and scorer at this point, but it's going to be that learning curve to see how well him and Wembanyama can play together. But I think once they get it together, they'll probably be fine. And I think Trey Young is probably the move. I think you're not in no rush with this timeline. It's only Wembanyama's second year he's going into. I mean, obviously Trey wants to win now, but I think if he sees like that potential of being there and being with this championship franchise, I think that he'll buy in. So I think that's kind of your thing. You kind of have someone you know that it's gonna buy in. You know what you're getting. And you have someone else who you may be taking more of a chance on. So, but he's the higher probably talent. So those are kind of like your two options there.
I feel like you can't go wrong with either or. Because even Trey's from Oklahoma. It's not that far away from where he grew up. And then you talk about I feel like he'd be a perfect fit for Wembanyama just because of, like I said, that pick and roll. You're bringing that 3-point presence in. And even though I like the young players that San Antonio had this past year, they're doing some good things. We talk a lot about Wembanyama, but even like having Devin Vassell over there, they just paid him. He's definitely been a big piece for them. They haven't had a true point guard. They tried to do this thing with Jeremy Sohan playing point guard, and it didn't really work out. And everybody else is just another guy, like a nice role player piece for them, but they haven't solidified that point guard position. I think that's Woj just come out and said that he expects there to be a lot of player movement. I wouldn't be shocked if it starts with the Hawks and the Spurs with with them making a deal for one of these two guys. And it goes back to what I had said last year because once they got Wembanyama, and the rumors have been going on since last year about whether they keep Trae or DeJounte, and it's just moving forward. So where there's smoke, there's fire. The Spurs are out here playing chess, not checkers. And this just once again solidifies how great of an organization they are and where they stand in the history of the NBA.
Right, and the Spurs have the fourth and eighth pick. I think they can dangle it. So I think it's also the Hawks. I think the Hawks, are you going full rebuild? And if you go full rebuild, do you trade Trae Young and try to get the fourth and eighth pick and maybe a couple of future picks uh, in the process? Or do you think you keep Trae Young and try to continue to build around him and trade DeJounte Murray back to San Antonio, whatever the case is? So it's gonna be interesting to see what the Hawks want to do in the situation too. So they could try to get those two picks from San Antonio. That means you have three lottery picks in this year's draft and kind of try to jumpstart your franchise maybe a little sooner. Or do you take this number one pick and try to build around Trae Young and maybe give up Murray and then go from there?
I feel like if they it's kind of like when last year with the Portland Trailblazers when it was like Dame really wanted to get a solidified star, not draft another guy. And once they went that route, it was like, all right, well, yeah, y'all got to get me out of here. I feel like where Trey's at with everything he's come out and said now, like I don't think he'd be happy if they drafted a player with the first overall pick. Because at that point, you're going into Carmelo Anthony territory.
If the Hawks draft a player with the
If
number one pick,
I've heard just this isn't a strong enough draft. Like it you can get a good player, but it's not they don't have like these they don't have any phenoms in this draft. We haven't followed these prospects like that to say that.
right? They're everyone has been saying, and even the experts have been saying that this is probably not the strongest draft. They're saying like you probably get a high caliber role player at best, maybe the third option, second option on the team. So you could it's for them. I having the number one pick is good, but it's just a stepping stone. You have to see kind of where you want to go from here, and that's why it might be worth to get the fourth and eighth pick, or and try to maybe flip one of those for a first round next year. But there's like Rob Dillingham from Kentucky. If you want to maybe take him with the fourth pick, he's a scorer, kind of good passer coming out of Kentucky. So that's someone who can you get him with the big guy that they're saying might go number one. That's like two pieces to kind of jumpstart your franchise. Maybe trade the eighth pick and get a first round pick for next year, which seems to be a better draft, and everyone's going to be in there trying to get the number one pick for Cooper Flag.
Yeah. We'll definitely see what happens there, man. Even like Houston. What is Houston gonna do at three? It's another team that I'm like, y'all don't really need that pick where you guys are at. What's a guy that you're looking at that you might be willing to part with the third overall pick for?
Right. Yeah, they're probably dangling that pick and see what they can get for it. There's some young talent maybe they could grab there, but I think they have enough young talent, if that's even like really a thing. But at this point, you want to kind of start winning. And they had a chance to maybe make it in a play-in this year, and then they signed Fred Van Vliet and a couple of veteran guys to try to help jumpstart that a little more. So I think you take this pick and do the same thing, try to get you another veteran in there, especially when you say this is not the greatest draft. So for a team like you, who probably is not going to have the time to really develop the guy anyway, you'd probably be better off to trade that for an impact player.
100%. Let's go ahead and jump into these conference semis, man, because boy, were they some.